Hi, this is Lutes&Dice, and my name is Fred Wheeler, and I'm not Falkid. Falkid is currently trying to get his stuff together because it's so early where he is. And here's a question for today, and that is, how do you find the balance between randomizing and narrating the outcomes in your games, whether it's Dungeons and Dragons or a roleplay game? What's the balance that you find between rolling randomly with dice or just narrating stuff?
So yeah, in other words, like when do you roll for stuff witnessed by players, like fight outcomes, NPC reactions, or knowledge checks? So I always try to put my players in the center of events and apply rolling dice to everything they directly interact with. Because first of all, it saves time, and also sort of benefits my plan in storytelling. So it allows me to railroad more. Well, I'm trying to keep a balance between railroading. I don't think railroading is bad, basically. But still, when players witness, like, for instance, two NPCs interacting with each other, would you roll for one NPC's insight aiming the other one? Or whether they deduct certain events, and, would you roll for that or just decide, okay, this NPC figures it out?
Well, I think that when we're talking about random rolling for character interactions versus not scripted, but more improvised storytelling, I think when you have low-level, low-stakes encounters, it's more fun to roll the dice because you're going to get a random outcome, but it's not going to greatly affect the story. So the players feel like there's a little bit of chance involved, there's a little bit of luck. But when it comes to the high-stakes, important plot beats, and when you get to the climax of a big campaign, for example, the last thing you want is the whole campaign story outcome to be reliant on if you roll a d20 higher or lower than a 10.
Totally.
So the important things, you should let the players play their game, but if they need some guidance and help, it's up to the DM to try and, what's the best phrase I'm looking for? To coerce them into making some important decisions. But for the easy stuff, let them roll dice. That's why you're here. You're playing the game.
I think the question here is like simulative versus narrative kind of design for our games, and we do a bit of both, right? We have some ideas of where we want the adventure to go or where we want the plot to progress to, and we also have like our world, and we want it to feel somewhat realistic, that people choose to do what they would like factions have their goals and they want to pursue them, and once they do, we feel like this is a real world. So we kind of have to find that balance when we're running games. I like having some ideas that I want the plot to go to, but mostly when it's like NPC versus NPC, I kind of know what's going to happen unless the players are going to, directly intervene, then and the stakes are off. But I do try to sit down and figure out what are the NPCs up to, what do they want to do, and then let that play out as I would like, as so I can take the plot to an interesting place. But whenever the players are up to something, whenever they do something, we're rolling for it. We're letting the simulation roll. We're letting the game go where they want to take it.
I don't really worry about balance. I like to be surprised. I couldn't give a toss about it. I guess I do what seems to make sense. Does it make sense to roll dice, or does it make sense that what they did doesn't need to have a dice roll? And I just go narrative with something. So I find with social interactions, I don't use dice very often. Really, the only times I use dice for resolving a social interaction is if it's a really new player and they're struggling, and it's way too new to them to be able to sort of put themselves out there and be that character and just talk in character, or talk in third person or first person or anything like that. Or if the group are just struggling with whatever they're doing with the interaction, then maybe I'll fall back on the dice. Or they're goofing off, then I might just like, okay, fine, so be it, goof off, I'll use dice in this case. Combat, usually I find most of the time, combat is usually I use dice to resolve that sort of thing, unless it's a really, really strong foe where I don't think them fighting makes any sense, or it's a really weak foe and I can't be buggered actually going through the process of running the battle with them, and I would prefer them to just either, if they're going to kill them, okay, fine, it's done. I don't know. I don't want to. No, I'm not rolling any dice. Thank you very much. I'm not getting miniatures out.
What about mass combat?
I don't do mass combat usually. I usually, even with mass combat, I focus in on a one location if I can, and then exploration. It's usually a combination, dependent on their actions for key points and things like that. I kind of think that if you have a really good plan, why roll a dice where there's a good chance, since it's a 20-sided dice and you can roll a 1 or a 20 and stuff up what is apparently almost what seems to be like a foolproof plan. Or if you have a really a bad plan, why roll dice to determine that you know it's already probably not going to work? So yeah, that's what I do with my game.
Actually, I wanted to add something about a different game to Dungeons and Dragons. It's called Blades in the Dark. I don't know if anyone's familiar with it, but the whole premise is that you're a group of thieves or rogues and you're trying to do dastardly deeds or getting paid for whatever reason. But the main twist is that you're not using D20 dice, you're using 2d6, and you're telling the story as it goes. So imagine there's a heist, for example. You're going into the heist, and then if you come up against some guards, you can retroactively go and say, oh, in the past I packed some sleeping powder in my backpack, and that's part of the narrative. So it's a lot more focused on the improvised narration than it is on the crunchy mechanics of rolling lots of dice to decide what's going to happen. And I think that idea is a great way to promote the players to have some constructive storytelling. It's kind of a little bit more shallow than D&D for the gameplay, but it more than makes up for the more improvised, like, acting side of things. So yeah, you should check out Blades of the Dark if you've not seen it before.
All right. Thanks everyone for your input. Fred, help me out.
Not a problem. Not a problem. So what Falkert is trying to say is that he would like you to leave thousands and thousands of comments down in the comment section for this video. Not only that, he would like you to only click the like button. Not that you'll know if you've done a dislike nowadays, because YouTube doesn't do that. And once you've done all that sort of stuff, well, then go check out everybody here. I'm How to D&D on YouTube, Twitter, and on Facebook. And what about you, Aviad?
I am on the Beyond the Screen YouTube channel, which I'm sure the links will appear below to our channel, so you can find everyone.
Rich Merry on everything. So YouTube, Twitter, and, well, the Twitter's got 0 on the end. But yeah, just look up Rich Merry on YouTube. You'll find it soon enough.
Thanks, Fred. Okay, yeah, thanks for watching. See you next time.